The doctor called her out of the room and the doctor said, "We've been working on him for 2 hours. We cannot revive him." And she turned and looked at me and she said, "I have no regrets." In the last few years, she had an impression to spend as much time as possible prioritizing time together. So when she said, "Remove the life support, I have no regrets," I was so moved. I want to achieve that too.
Debbie, I was reminded of a conversation I had with my neighbor who had terminal cancer. She was a week away from dying. And I'll never forget the expression of our feelings that day. The walls were gone. There were no masks. There was some kind of pure expression of our feelings I'll never forget. It reminded me that day how important it is. Don't be afraid to pull down our masks, to be vulnerable, to express our feelings. It's such a key to not feeling regret.
Have you ever longed to be able to talk about values and morals or faith and spirituality without feeling judged? Hi, and welcome to our podcast, Mindful Moments, Insights to Empower the Soul. This podcast will empower you to embrace your true self. I'm Dr. Debi Gilmore.
And I'm Sharilyn Green. We are married to family therapists and humans with a passion for personal growth and well-being. Today, Debbie and I hope to explore the powerful feelings of regret that come when we believe something in the past could have been better if we had acted differently. This includes painful emotions such as sorrow or disappointment, and is usually the result of thinking about a past choice, action, or missed opportunity.
You know, when we reflect on what could have been, basically what I call Monday morning quarterback syndrome, we might find ourselves overcome with shame or misapplied guilt because we believe our life could have been better if we had only done something differently or more perfectly.
Yeah, this hits home because recently I did something that filled me with a deep sense of regret. It wasn't terrible, but it was enough to agonize over, knowing I hadn't shown up as my best self. For me, this painful experience was the perfect opportunity to work through the emotion of regret in a way that was instructive rather than destructive. I have a firm belief that regret isn't just painful, it's actually a signal of my core values. Seeing regret as a signal rather than shameful has actually been really life-changing for me. It provides a strong moral compass, recalibrating choices. I've learned that regret is a way to deepen my self-understanding, showing me where the gap is between my behaviors and my values. I've been really interested in the work of Bronnie Ware. She's an Australian palliative care nurse who spent years caring for people in the final weeks of their lives. And through countless bedside conversations, she noticed common themes of regret, ultimately writing a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. In addition, I've also been fascinated by the book The Power of Regret by Dan Pink and his research.
There's so many resources out there, and these two I wasn't aware of. Need to crack open those books and study their thoughts and inspired words. Sharilyn, thank you for sharing such a deeply personal experience. We all have those, but our willingness to talk about them and share what we've learned from them is so important. And I, too, am actually grateful for what I call the gift of discernment, especially when it becomes an alarm signaling to me that I'm a bit off course and I need to course correct. You know, your suggestion of that painful feeling of regret can actually be instructive. And I see it as a motivator for change, and it's so helpful. I especially appreciated your example because it demonstrates that staying in touch with our emotions can keep us focused on practicing how to be better human beings. It might be helpful if we talk about some key aspects of regret. So how about if we just take a few minutes to talk about them? There's one that we call counterfeit thinking. And that kind of regret, it involves our imagining, if only I had done and fill in the blank, things would be so different. The problem with that is it fuels comparison. It causes us to look outside ourselves and say, how am I doing? How are they doing? Oh, and evokes some painful feelings. It's also a major assumption that's not based on fact. Basically, in counterfeit thinking, we have written the story that we believe might have been fulfilled and have reinforced the feelings of failure. So that's one. Another one, and this is a healthy one, and it reminds me of what you just talked about, Sharilyn, regret driven by values and morals. So this category, it's a type of regret that's healthy and powerful, can be. And there's a moral dimension to the experience of this kind of regret. It might involve normal feelings of disappointment. We experience that as humans. Maybe about a loss of money or a loss of a job or a painful relationship breakup. But regret may also be based on something we did or said that hurt someone we care deeply about. The reason this type of regret might be seen as good and healthy is because it, at least for me, it drives me to take responsibility and to work toward repair and the forgiveness that's so difficult and positive change.
I love these, Debbie. And actually, I can't get past the word alarm that you used. It really does feel like an alarm going off.
Yes.
And it can be a sickening feeling, but I love the idea that it's just signaling something that's out of line and out of balance.
Think about a fire alarm. Why do we value them? Because they say danger, danger. So that alarm can be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that word that you used. So the third type we want to talk about is we call it double trouble. And it's a category about the nature of regret and that sometimes regret can be helpful and healthy. It's a motivator for change. However, regret can be deeply harmful if we ruminate, punish ourselves, or feel paralyzed, believing we're doomed to failure as a human with no ability to repair or request a redo. Yeah, that thought that, wow, it's over, I messed up, there's no way to fix this, there's no way to change or repair this, that's so discouraging, so harmful. And so I love the idea that this is an opportunity to redo things, to repair, to restore, all those positive words.
Yeah, you're talking about the feeling that we get, that painful ache that actually determines how we're going to think and act throughout our day. It can be a block for our being our true self and really paralyze us. So I'm so glad we're talking about the emotions that are connected to unhealthy regret.
Yeah, as we've said, basically regret is the mind's way of looking backwards, comparing reality with what might have been, and then the heart's way of reminding us of what truly matters. Regret can be both healthy and unhealthy. We said depending on how it's experienced and processed.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful, Sherilyn, to talk about healthy regret and really delineate the difference between the two. When the experience of regret is used as a motivator for change, in a positive attitude for growth, we allow those thoughts and emotions to serve as a learning signal. We talk about alarms and signals, and we value those as well. They keep us safe, they keep us on track. So ideally, healthy regret inspires swift action. I like that word swift, acting swiftly. And it's an opportunity to do damage control before the hurt actually gets bigger and expands into broken trust and even reduced credibility for us. Healthy regret, it prompts us to ask the question, what can I do differently next time? In fact, I think a better question to start with would be, how can I offer my deep personal regret to the person I have hurt or offended? And that's a really beautiful way to approach an apology. There's nothing like the peace that comes when we rise up and take accountability for our regrettable actions, the overall sense of relief and peace of conscience that we all desire. We can proceed to work on growth and change and responsibility to do better. An example, addressing a mistake where we had a taxing day and maybe we snapped at our loved one, and now what? Addressing this swiftly means we have to call up courage, right? And then to approach the loved one with I say with my tail between my legs, to say something like, I can see I hurt you. And I regret speaking that way to you. And I really want to do better next time. This kind of apology is powerful and really most effective. So healthy regret motivates us to acknowledge and own our mistake, to accept the responsibility, and to allow the experience to influence our efforts towards self-improvement, to do better next time, and to learn from our mistake instead of be consumed by shame.
I love that. And we're going to talk about unhealthy regret right now. And as I'm thinking about that, you've reminded me of a story from my childhood that is such an example of not doing something swiftly. When I was 8, I told my mom a lie. And I worried and worried about that for months. I would go to bed at night and I would sit and think about that and try to get the courage to tell her I was consumed by regret over doing it.
Oh.
Finally, when I got the courage to tell her that I had told her a lie, she just kind of shrugged her shoulders and said, "Oh, no worries." And I remember even as a little girl thinking, "Oh my word, what a waste to spend all those nights, all those days just agonizing over that." So I love the idea that you brought up in our healthy response to regret that swiftly.
So Sherilyn, let's talk about this. You remember that at this age, you're at least 40. And to remember distinctly what that felt like, it was an amazing learning experience, even though it was painful.
Yeah. Yeah, I determined then never to do that again, to be swift in my repairs. So let's talk about unhealthy regret. And that happens when we fixate on the past without resolution or determination to correct our mistake. In fact, we might tell ourselves, "I will never forgive myself. If only I'd done things differently. I'm a fool and a failure." And this thought process, we know, fuels shame, it reinforces rumination, and it actually results in absolute utter paralysis. When we get caught in unhealthy regret, our story can become something like, "I've ruined my life by making that decision," or "there's nothing I can do to make up for this." Unhealthy regret often involves absolutes and rigid assumptions of failure. It generates lower self worth and an inability to challenge ourselves to do hard things. It can keep us stuck, it can drain our emotional energy, and often feed self criticism rather than growth. So the difference between unhealthy and healthy regret looks forward, resulting in personal growth and learning with the ultimate blessing of change and resilience. And unhealthy regret looks backwards, including rumination, shame, and self-punishment.
Wow. I'm so glad we did this, that we separated the two and said that regret can be helpful. You and I scanned the research, Sherilyn, and on regret, and we found some powerful ways to remain what you said just now, forward focused, looking forward. Practicing these principles that we're going to outline is especially helpful as we work to align our values that we've identified and apply them in better ways. Not perfect, that's not possible, but to learn from rather than suffer from regret. It can be useful. So let's talk about some of the things that we found that I'm working myself to apply. The first one is it's important to live true to ourself. This means daily asking, am I living my life guided by my values or am I focused on pleasing others? Do I agonize over what I tell myself other people expect of me? That's an assumption. And allow that to hijack me into ultimately betraying myself. We get caught in this really easily. If we stop and recognize, now, wait, am I being driven by the things that are important to me? Or am I stepping all over myself just to be sure that others aren't uncomfortable or unhappy? So this means we have to take small but bold steps. Slow down. For example, commit to ourselves to apply for that job that we've avoided. Or don't just think about the project, start it. Say yes to the challenge or the adventure. Courage beats comfort. Now, what does this mean? Another way to say it, and I love to say this, is there is no growth in the comfort zone and no comfort in the growth zone. Now, the second way to stay forward focused is to strive for balance in our work and life. Now, that's hard. This can actually be especially tough if balance hasn't been our norm. In order to do this and incorporate healthy balance, I think the best way to begin is with a commitment to ourselves to do it. I am going to establish balance in my life. It requires intentional focus. How much time am I presently spending on work, family, self-care, hobbies, exercise, shopping, all those things that we do enjoy, and none of them are bad. But then we have to determine what is a healthy balance. What's my goal? So notice first I said I'm going to commit to myself to do this. Now I'm going to identify what is balance and then adjust as needed. So balance means prioritizing time with family and loved ones over work and protecting that time. Now, the way regret plays into this is we're practicing. We're not going to get it perfect. So giving ourselves grace to say, okay, I'm doing my best. I'm trying to implement new balance and giving ourselves wiggle room to get it wrong every once in a while.
I love these. I'm excited about this research that we've kind of scanned through on these really kind of 5 simple checkpoints to kind of look at in life and make sure that we're staying on track. Third one I really love, it's to express your feelings, to speak the unspoken, to express appreciation, apologies, love, and boundaries. Write down regrets or unspoken feelings and then share them with someone safe. Vulnerability, we know, strengthens relationships and prevents bitterness. As I was thinking about this, Debbie, I was reminded of a conversation I had with my neighbor a couple of years ago who had terminal cancer, and she was maybe a week away from dying. And I'll never forget the expression of our feelings that day. The walls were gone, there were no masks. There was some kind of pure expression of our feelings I'll never forget. It reminded me that day how important it is, just as it says, speak the unspoken. Don't be afraid to pull down our masks, to be vulnerable, to express our feelings. I think it's such a key to not feeling regret someday of not having done that. So I love this third one. The next one is to nurture our relationships, to not wait for the perfect moment to reach out. You know, when we get a thought in our mind to send a text, to make a phone call, we should always just do it. It matters so much. We can even create rituals, weekly check-ins, yearly reunions, shared traditions. You know, the research shows that connection regrets, that's what we're calling this, are some of the deepest there are. And we can avoid that. We can limit those by acting when these thoughts and these opportunities come to nurture relationships.
Wow, you shared this experience with your friend, and I'm reminded of an experience I had many, many years ago with a dear friend of mine. Her husband had learned the night before that he had stage 4 cancer. And I was with her at the hospital. And I remember I went home that night and determined I was going to come back and spend some time with her while they decided what were they going to do about this. When I arrived, I found her and they were gathered in a family room in the hospital that they offered to all the loved ones. The doctor called her out of the room and she asked me to go with her. And the doctor said, "We've been working on him for 2 hours. We cannot revive him." And she turned and looked at me and she said, "I have no regrets." I thought, wow. And so she explained to me that in the last few years, she had an urgency, impressions, promptings to spend as much time as possible traveling, being together, prioritizing time together. So that moment when she said, "Go ahead and remove the life support, I have no regrets," I was so moved by that and thought, I want to achieve that too. What did it take? She acted swiftly on promptings and had no regrets. Now that's the perfect state. So what we want to do is just do better. So another one, and this one might seem a little difficult, and it is, but choosing happiness and growth. Now, what does that mean? Happiness could be considered a decision and not a condition. In order to practice this, we have to practice gratitude. We choose, we have to slow down, even pause long enough to notice the world around us and savor small joys and give ourselves permission to enjoy life. A dear friend this morning, I was in a meeting. She said, "Did you see the sunset last night?" And I said, "No." Where was I? I was speeding down whatever I was doing and missed it. But when regret does arise, the way to hold on to happiness and growth is to first apply self-compassion, to not beat ourselves up, and to say, okay, I made a mistake. Second, to say it out loud, this cliche of name it to tame it. Well, it works. That's why that's such an important one. And then the third one that you and I, Sharilyn, have focused on today is stay forward focused, having forward focused vision, and ask, what would my future me want me to do now? I love that. Come to myself, not my neighbor, and say, what would you do? What would my future me that I want to be better? What would that me want me to do?
I love this so much, to just slow down and go through these things that we've talked about. And so, in that moment when that regret comes, that alarm, we want to talk about ways that we can turn unhealthy regret into healthy regret. There's a moment there, right? A space where we can slow down and we can catch that alarm, that signal that something's off. How do we switch from what might be unhealthy to healthy? So, one of the ways is when we refuse to buy into the idea that we failed and are doomed, there are practical steps that fuel growth and replace shame with hope and new direction. And one of those is to identify the roots. It's helpful to pause long enough and ask, am I regretting because I want to learn, or am I punishing myself? Such a good question. Am I pausing to learn, or is this a punishment I'm inflicting on myself? And so awareness helps shift our mindset from self-condemnation to self-compassion.
So, what you're talking about is a self interview. Check myself, come to myself and say, hold on. As therapists, we're always interested in the roots of our pain. When our clients come in and we want to know, you're not a bad person, there's something that happened that caused you to feel that way. What's the driver? So another one is to then interview ourselves and say, what have I learned? Instead of replaying, I wish I hadn't done that, instead you want to ask, what does this regret teach me about what I value? It just reinforces our values. Or what can I do differently if this situation arises again? I call that the fire drill. Once you've asked yourself these questions, once I've done that for myself, write down one or two concrete lessons and do it differently. Now, why do we say write it down? Because we know that's how the brain works. It reinforces how we learn. When we say it, we write it, and then we do it. So, and I mentioned this earlier, this one's so important, to practice self-compassion. What is that? Well, it suggests acknowledging our own suffering, our own pain and disappointment, saying, well, it makes sense that I'm hurting right now. It makes sense that I have regret. That same gentle kindness that we would offer a friend, a stranger even who's suffering, we would offer that to them. So we need to talk to ourselves as if we were our close friend. We might say something like, I made a mistake, but mistakes don't define me. I can learn and I can do better. This is what I would call a gentle offering of self-compassion that takes that emotional tone from shame into growth and self-acceptance.
It's interesting. We do that so well for friends. And sometimes it's hard for ourselves. It's shocking, actually. The next one we want to talk about is taking reparative action. So if that regret has involved hurting a loved one or a close friend, it's essential that we apologize, we make amends, and course correct where we can. One of the things that can backfire, though, is just to say, I'm sorry. We know that that's not often effective. Instead, it's much more effective to acknowledge the pain that we've caused, to validate, know the disappointment that they're feeling, and then to let them know that we're committed to being more aware of being respectful and kind, taking ownership and really helping that person see and feel our own efforts to be responsible and to see the pain that we've caused matters so much than just a simple kind of, I'm sorry. And in that, it's possible to think about sending a note, expressing that. Sometimes that's a better or easier way to do it, where you can think about it and word it in a way that honors the pain and the disappointment we may have caused. And then the most important thing we should do is to create a change in our behaviors so that that regret can transform into the healing that that person needs. Another important thing to do is to limit rumination. We're all prone, we all do this, to fixate or ruminate on the mistakes that we've made. And so awareness is the first step to interrupting that process of rumination. We like to encourage people to set a boundary, to give yourself just 10 or 15 minutes to reflect and then shift to action or self-care. So each time regret surfaces, remind yourself, I've already learned from this, but now I'm moving forward.
This requires self-awareness, and that takes courage to stop and look within. But what we're trying to do is, instead of looking outside ourselves and comparing, we're looking within and saying, I want to take care of me, and I'm going to give myself gentleness, but I can't ruminate on something that's already happened. All I have control over is the forward process, going forward. One of the ways that we can do that is to reframe the story. When you take a picture, I don't know if you've ever done this, Sherilyn, but I've had several moves in my life, in my married life, and we've taken pictures down and brought them with us. And we get into the new space and say, wait, no, those frames don't work anymore. I want a different frame that fits my present situation. So instead of telling ourselves, I have ruined everything, I would throw those paintings away, right? I'd go, well, they're reject. Try telling yourself that decision didn't turn out how I hoped, but it gave me clarity for the future. Another word I love, clarity. As we ponder on what we wish we had done differently, it's important to commit to ourselves to improve, act swiftly. See, this is kind of a review of all that we've already talked about, or do the hard thing that we wish we had done. That's probably the most difficult, but reframing clarifies healthy meaning, looking at it with a positive bend and with purpose rather than reinforcing paralysis, which we all get caught in too when we feel so stuck in failure and an inability to find ways to become better. No, there's so many options. So, bottom line, let's just talk about this, Sherilyn. Unhealthy regret is an evaluation of our worth. It really does attack who we are, not what we do. So basically, we're telling ourselves, this is just who I am. I'm incapable of change. But do you want to review what healthy regret is, Sherilyn?
Well, healthy regret is learning from the mistakes that we've made and using that as a way to become better, to become the best self that we want to be. And it's such valuable information if we see it that way. It just helps us course correct in a way that's an emotional experience, right? And so it's a profound experience. And that learning is incredible because it's such an emotional experience. And a mistake I made a few weeks ago, I'm not ever going to forget that. It was such an emotional experience. I've learned from it, and I'm excited to do differently the next time that situation arises. That's, I think, the bottom line of healthy regret is looking at it as an opportunity to learn and to change and to be better, to become our best self.
I have such respect for people that can say, I regret that, but I'm going to do better next time. That's amazing. Sherilyn, I want us to say, therefore, what? One of the things, a couple actually, one of the things I'm taking away is I remembered this experience with my friends so many years ago to be able to say, I have no regrets. So every day to wake up and say, how can I learn from yesterday so that I can be better today? And if I do make a mistake today, how can I do better tomorrow? I'm not going to beat myself up. I think that's my takeaway.
I love those so much. And I'm just going to add to that. My takeaway also is to have the courage to try something new, to jump in when it's scary, to not be afraid to choose the adventure. I don't want to have regrets about that either in life. I want to look back and say, wow, I tried it. Even though it failed or whatever, I tried it. And so I think that's my takeaway is to, I don't want to have regrets about not jumping in life and going forward with faith and not doubt.
Well, thank you so much, Sherilyn. It's been really a pleasure to talk through this, even though this is a difficult topic. But I want to encourage everyone to follow us. We're on Instagram, and we hope that these messages that we leave with you leaves you wanting to come back for more.
Thanks, Debbie. It's been so fun to talk about this with you. I've loved it.